And joining us now for perspectives on Trump's meeting with Xi Jinping and the overall visit to Asia is Allen Zhang. He's a research assistant at the Heritage Foundation's Asian Studies Center. Thanks for joining us this morning, Allen. Love to get your initial thoughts on the much-hyped meeting between Trump and Xi.
Well, we went into the meeting with lots of momentum, and it seems like that momentum carried through. We saw a lot of tangible outcomes from that deal. Now, China has already agreed to collaborate and commit to cracking down on fentanyl precursors, but also, more importantly, limit their export restrictions on rare earth minerals. So I think President Trump has done a wonderful job, as he always does, at making deals.
True, but some might say, the answer was in the envelope, right? Like Besant kind of had already hammered out all that stuff before they met. So it seems like, yes, everything was agreed to that was supposed to be agreed to on the economic front and on the fentanyl front. But what's the broader significance of the meeting and perhaps what wasn't agreed to or spoken openly about?
Well, I won't lie. Negotiations between the world's two largest economies is going to be a pretty difficult task. But what I will say is that we've made tremendous progress on a lot of important issues. As you mentioned, there's still ongoing negotiations as it relates to chip controls, specifically whether or not President Trump will agree to allow NVIDIA to sell high advanced US AI chips to China. That's still on the table at the moment, and we'll have to see where that goes. But for the most part, a lot of negotiations on rare earth minerals as well as fentanyl crackdowns has already been negotiated out.
And this deal is the term of this deal is a year, and then they're going to meet again in China in April, and then a subsequent potential meeting in the U.S. Do you expect the terms of this deal to hold up for a year, since the regime itself has been notorious for not following through on deals that it has made or promises that it often makes?
Well, I certainly think that China is in a very desperate position at this moment, especially because it heavily relies on our chips that we bring that are high quality, high caliber from the United States. Now, President Trump has already declared that he was going to consider negotiating with China, and China has shown that it's had a willingness to compromise. So at the end of the day, I think that both sides are going to benefit quite dramatically from a deal like this, which makes it highly unlikely that China will walk away and back out altogether.
So this latest spat was brought on by the Chinese side. They took a shot across the bow on rare earth export restrictions, kind of out of nowhere, and then they paused soybean imports from American farmers. So while those points appear to have been resolved, did that negotiating tactic brought on by the Chinese side prevent the U.S. from making other advances in areas on our agenda? Because really we're just kind of back to neutral before they, made those provocations. No advancements on Russia, no advancements publicly on Jimmy Lai, Taiwan, human rights. The things that were negotiated were the things that kind of should have been sorted out initially, and China kind of took an aggressive posture. So are we more in a defensive posture and just sort of back to even, or do you see any material advancements as a result of the meeting?
Well, what China mostly did was out of symbolicism, in the sense that they've just held their fourth plenum and reaffirmed President Xi's authority as General Secretary of the party. Now, they want to do something to show that President Xi has still overreigning, unchallenged authority, and that he's effectively weathered the Western pressures on his markets. But deep down, China is feeling the shocks that the United States is placing, and it's forced to come to the negotiating table, something that President Trump has cleverly figured out how to negotiate. I think moving forward, China will continue this train of coming to the negotiating table, and I'm positive and even more optimistic to see that a deal like this will continue to play out in the future.
And I want to get your view on South Korea. I noticed the U.S. is taking investment from South Korea on a joint nuclear submarine project. Yesterday on NTD, Colonel Grant Newsham came on, and he said that the current South Korean leadership is pretty much in with the CCP. They're not Western leaning. Is there any risk to working on military projects under the current administration in South Korea?
Well, I will say that shipping is a very sensitive area, and more specifically, a national security concern. But South Korea has been a very important partner of ours, It's also the second largest shipbuilder country in the world. As far as we know, the deal contains nothing nefarious, and President Trump, I'm sure, will be careful to take precautions as it relates to national security issues. But as far as we're concerned, at this moment in time, the deal looks pretty ironclad, and that the United States will gain tremendously through the help that South Korea is able to supply, both through logistics as well as training.
And just as we finish up, Allen, your thoughts on Trump reinitiating nuclear tests?
Well, I think it comes at a very precarious time. During President Trump's trip, Russia did launch a nuclear missile testing that triggered a lot of responses. I think President Trump has made clear that the United States has a zero tolerance policy towards these escalatory measures, and that we do have nuclear submarine ships just off the coast of Russia, but that also the United States is willing to stand firm and use any means, such as sanctions, to prevent any escalation in the future.
Yeah, quite an alarming escalation, but something that we'll be obviously keeping a close eye on. And as you mentioned, Trump certainly looking to use deterrence more than anything else. So appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Allen Zhang, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.